Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit survives the second period collapse and survives to see another day.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And still alive, barely, but they're still in this thing. And with a Pittsburgh loss, they're actually only the second team, the first team on the outside looking in now, which is crazy to say because during the third period, Scotty, what were they saying? They lose in regulation, they're eliminated from the playoff contention. But then they pulled it out. Pittsburgh lost. Washington won too. But you're tied in points for that final wild card spot with the Washington Capitals. Of course, with them having the tiebreaker, you got to beat them outright. But crazy game, dude. Absolutely crazy game against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday. First period, you're like, we got this. Second period, you're like, it's so over. And then they pull it out. Crazy that if that wasn't the Red Wings season in a nutshell right there.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's exactly what I was going to say, was that this was the perfect just like epitome of their season up to this point. It's you know, they get off to the really hot start. They let the other team completely back in it. You entirely 100% think they're going to lose, and then they do just enough to stay alive. And that's what the whole season has been, was, you know, really good. At least really maybe not even the whole season. You could just say that game perfectly encapsulated just the 2024 calendar, right? Really hot start, disaster, middle, and then they're doing just enough to just stay alive here and pull it out late. And hopefully that overtime goal is a sign of things to come as well, and hopefully they can make the postseason here. But yeah, absolutely ridiculous hockey game, like absurd.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about difference maker in this hockey game, I'll let you go first. It's very obvious though, so I'll let you take that one away.
Sure, yeah, I appreciate the underhand, the T-ball here. Dylan Larkin is pretty obviously the difference maker in this one, and what a difference maker he has just been in general. I think the last week, obviously they have not gotten over the hump and won all of these games that we have declared a must win, and then they're, I guess, not in hindsight because they're still in it despite losing them. But he has been so good, and he has come up multiple times with just really, really, really huge goals, and obviously no bigger maybe in the entire season so far than the goal in overtime. But even outside of that, just the top line in general has been absolutely buzzing the last week or so. And a lot of that is because of Lucas Raymond playing really well, obviously Dylan Larkin playing really well, and Alex DeBrincat, who I'm sure we'll talk about, has been solid and finally found the back of the net here in this one too. But yeah, I really don't think anyone more deserving than that title in this game than Larkin himself.
Yeah, that goal by Dylan Larkin was his 33rd of the year, which is a career high in goals for him. And I'm going to say it again: if he hadn't been hurt, he's a 40 goal scorer.
Yeah,
which is something
40 at least.
Which is something we thought DeBrincat was going to be, and we were like pretty comfortable saying that Larkin was always going to get in the 30 range, but might not ever hit 40. Well, without injuries, he would have hit 40 pretty comfortably. Like he missed 15, if not more games this season. Like he's there, and that's incredible. Like that's what we need out of your captain, your number one center, that the kind of energy and emotion he brings to every single game. Like I'm comfortable saying, and it's not like a hot take, I understand that, but like game on the line, there's no one stick I want that puck on more than Dylan Larkin's, more so than Patrick Kane, who's a future Hall of Famer. And, you know, it has been so good for the Detroit Red Wings, more than a shooter like Alex DeBrincat, more than Lucas Raymond, who's been having a breakout year. Like I want that on Dylan Larkin's stick because he's a clutch player. I think he's tied now for second in OT winners in his career, and he's only 27 years old. I think he's got 9, and I think Sergei Fedorov is the franchise most with 12, which I assume if Larkin can stay healthy enough to play another 10 years, he'll probably crush that. So, I mean, what an incredible performance by Dylan Larkin, incredible finish. Again, that top line, like you were saying, that's 2 games now where they've reunited that top line, and it's paid dividends. Now, granted, Dylan Larkin's goal in overtime came at 4-on-3 power play in overtime, and he wasn't out there with his top line. And DeBrincat's second goal was on the power play as well. But, those guys are still gelling. That first goal, Alex DeBrincat, this is my second difference maker, the backup difference maker, as we always have a second one. Alex DeBrincat, difference maker in this hockey game. Like, he chose a hell of a game to finally break a 25-game scoring drought. Was his last goal against the Chicago Blackhawks in February. Like, that's how long it was for Alex DeBrincat. And we talked a lot about it. And we've talked a lot about how the scoring wasn't there, and it's okay to be frustrated with Alex DeBrincat because that's what you brought him in to do. But he's got a career high in assists. At least he's tied his career high in assists, if not going to.
It's not like he's doing nothing. It's just he's not doing what we thought he was going to do. There's a difference between those two things.
Defensively, he's never looked better. Like, against Washington, he had an incredible back check. So he's playing really good hockey. He just wasn't finding the back of the net, which understandable after 25 games of not scoring or whatever it was. And you signed a guy to be your 40-goal scorer. It's okay to be upset at that. I'm not going to take that away from anybody.
For sure.
But it's not as if he hasn't been playing well outside of that. And to see him finally get rewarded with finding the back of the net twice. And I mean, you could have said this in any of the last 5-6 games, but a do or die game. Like, this was literally, you don't win, you die. So it was a do or die game, and Alex DeBrincat came up huge. Beautiful feed from Lucas Raymond too, to play back into the top line, just gelling incredibly well. Lucas Raymond's 40th assist on the year, which is it gives him 69 points. And if he gets one more goal, he'll have 30 goals, 40 assists for 70 points. I mean, that entire top line was dynamite. But yeah, difference makers in this game, man. Dylan Larkin, Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, I don't think you need to look too much further. I mean, those guys were responsible. Obviously, Cat with 2 goals and then Larkin with the biggest goal, again, probably of the season so far. So, and again, like, this was a roller coaster of a hockey game. This was not, this was what, 4-1 after 1 and then 4-4 going into 3. Like, this was an absolute, the definition of a roller coaster of a game. But, cooler heads prevail, and that is what your captain should do. That's what you rely on your captain to do, is dig the team out of the gutter, and when your back is against the wall, come out on top. And thank goodness that happened, because now we live to fight another day, at least.
Absolutely. And looking at, because this is a tale of two games, right? Like, first period, second period, third period was just kind of a mixed bag. Let's stay with when we're moving to notable performers here. Let's stay with the first period. We'll stay on the positives to start, because we're already kind of there. Simon Edvinsson, huge game by him again. He and Jeff Petrie continue to build confidence and chemistry. But that goal by Simon Edvinsson was so beautifully set up by him. He goes on the board. He wins a board battle. Was it against Nylander or Marner? Regardless, it was against one of those two. And he then stick handles away from oncoming pressure towards the middle, feeds Perron down low with the intent of going straight to the net for the return feed. And he fires it home for a rifle of a shot. And like, this may have been the best offensive game we've seen from Simon Edvinsson yet. And like, we've known that he has a little bit of an offensive upside. We obviously are aware, like, he's not an offensive defenseman, but he can contribute in the offensive zone. And this was our first game, and a hell of a game to show up with, where he makes like a big play like that, a big splash play to give the Red Wings an early two-goal lead. And then right after that, he had the confidence too. Like, he came right back down and had another shot down low on Samsonov. So he had a great game. Petrie too. But yeah, that pair has been getting better every game.
Yeah, I think every game that goes by, I get more and more excited about Edvinsson's next season, right? Like, I'm obviously not trying to jump the gun, and we're in the midst of two of the biggest games in recent history for the Red Wings here this week. But in terms of individual player like development, I am beyond excited for this fall for Edvinsson at this point, because of how good he continues to look and grow and kind of get. I think really it is confidence and comfortability, what you said there. And if you can even get anything, and you will get something out of the offensive zone from him, but if you can even make that semi-consistent, you're going to get a pretty darn good player.
Yeah, I mean, he led all defenders with 3 shots in this hockey game.
Yeah.
He played 20 minutes and 10 seconds of ice time, 28 shifts. I mean, he has come right into the NHL and has solidified his role on that second pair. Now, granted, I think that second pair is getting a little bit more sheltered now that Edvinsson and Petrie are a pair, as Sherratt has moved up with Seider, and they're getting even more of a workload, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's growing into that role, and he's been getting penalty kill time right off rip, and he's looked great in that role. He's got soft hands for a guy that tall and that long. He's a good skater. Like, we could go on end. As we end this segment, I do want to say, Scotty, because we've talked about the top line, we've talked about Simon Edvinsson. Who do you think, with those context clues, led the team in shot attempt share, your Corsi 4 percentage at 5-on-5?
Is it Edvinsson?
Edvinsson in the top line.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah. So we talk about how the difference makers and notable performers of this segment were top line, basically top line centric, and that Simon Edvinsson rookie. And it goes Alex DeBrincat led the team in shot attempt share with 57%, then Raymond and Larkin with 51%, and then Simon Edvinsson at a solid 50. So your top 4 players in this game, the biggest contributors in this hockey game, were the guys who are backed up analytically as having very good hockey games. And you love to see that when what you see on the ice matches up with what's on the stat sheet.
Absolutely. Just, again, roller coaster of a game.
Absolutely. We're going to go to segment 2, and when we return, we're going to keep on talking about notable performers. There's quite a few in this hockey game. Not all good, but stay tuned for that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning what? Burning what, Scotty? We're rolling with
Rubber, not cash.
There we go. We're rolling with it. Because just like how you should roll with eBay Motors. Because with eBay Motors, all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, we have a lot of notable performers. I know we're kind of trying to stick with the positives here how they exploded out of the gate in the first period. Do you have any more positives for the first period, notable performers, or should we move on to what was a scary finish and monumental collapse in the second?
I think the only other person I thought had a pretty solid game all around was JT Compher, actually. And obviously, like, the assists are easy to point to, but he looks I thought really solid defensively, and not too much went right defensively in the second period, as we're going to talk about here. But I thought that he was someone who obviously is not going to show up too much on the score sheet, but had a pretty darn good hockey game.
Yeah, and the David Perron goal, he's the one who broke that puck up the ice to Patrick Kane, who then fed David Perron, who scored the goal to make it 4-1. Some questionable goaltending from both ends of the ice in this game. We could nitpick Samsonov's play there on Perron's goal. The fact that he stayed on the opposite side, even though he knew where the puck was. But
correct.
We'll take the goal. And then, of course, he had the secondary assist. He had 2 assists in this game. He had the primary assist, rather, on Alex DeBrincat's goal on the power play. So, yeah, pretty good. He's a quiet type of player. Like, he's going to accumulate points, but you're not really going to ever notice it out there because he's not flashy. He just plays the game the right way. He plays it smart. We talk about questionable signings, but I feel like he is giving you what you expected from him out of free agency.
I agree.
Scotty, notable performers on the negative side as the second period began, and slowly but surely. It's crazy. Overall, in the second period, I don't think the Wings played that poorly. It was just mistakes, like always, right? They make mistakes, and they're not good enough to bail themselves out of those mistakes. And that was the name of the game in the second period. And I guess, obviously, I know pre-show you wanted to talk about Reimer. We'll get to that. Patrick Kane had a give and take game. He had 2 assists as well, including the primary assist on the overtime goal, but he took some very untimely penalties, both of which were high sticks. The first one was a double minor high stick. I understand, like, those aren't intentional, and a lot of times they're accidental. Like, you're going to lift the stick and you miss and you catch them up high, or you hit a guy and sometimes your arm just rides up their body. But just the timeliness of those assists or those penalties really hurt the Red Wings. One directly obviously led to a goal against to make it 4-3 at the time. And momentum just completely shifted back towards the Leafs' way after that power play goal.
Yeah, the double minor was devastating. I don't know. I don't have too much else to say about it. Just really sucked. He ended with what, 6 PIMs? That is right, 2
Which
and
is rare
4.
for
I mean,
Kane.
yeah, man, like that. That's just not great in the biggest game of the season, as every single game over the last week has been the biggest game of the season. But it is true every time we say it. So yeah, I don't have too much else to add. I'm not worried about Patrick Kane, like making a ton of timely penalties going forward or anything. He hasn't done that all year. Just really sucked in the moment for sure.
It was just an unorthodox game from him. And like I said, give and take. Like he had 2 assists, one of which was the OT winner, but then also took a couple, like that second penalty he took in the third period was with 5 minutes left and it was a tie game. And you're thinking, holy cow, Patrick Kane might be the reason we lose, which how many times in your life are you going to say that?
Yeah.
But I mean, he made up for it in overtime. So I'm not too mad about it, but I was just, it's like we said, notable performance.
Notable.
All
I mean, Reimer is,
there you go.
I think unless there's somebody else you want to talk about, I think Reimer is probably
go right ahead.
One of the most notable performers that's not a straight up difference maker. Thankfully, they hold on for the win. We've been talking about it a lot, man. It's so wild to me that Reimer continues to be in net for wins when this team is winning, games 6-5 and 5-4 and 4-3. And Lyon has been, and Lyon wasn't great his last time out, but Lyon, over the last couple of weeks has had some really good games and not gotten reward for it in the win-loss column. So, I didn't think Reimer was sharp at all in this game. I thought the second period, no surprise to anybody singling that period out, but the second period especially was kind of a complete disaster. I don't know. I mean, there was a point where the fan base was like, you're not going to pull them when you're winning or in a tie game, but like this is really not going well.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the same. You can make the same argument this game with James Reimer that you could have made with Alex Lyon the game before, right? Where if you look at how the plays unfolded, I mean, backdoor goals, power play, like a lot of backdoor goals. Obviously, the Robertson goal was just a rifle. He should have had that one. It was just a shot. And I always say goalies should just have the shots. But the Mitch Marner goal on the power play was backdoor. Sider didn't cover him properly, but also what was Reimer doing? Like he had so overcommitted to the left side. He had no chance at getting over. The Austin Matthews one again, another backdoor one, but instead of lateraling, he just spread his leg. Like he did the splits instead and ducked, and he ducked again, leaving the entire top half of the net open.
He's done that like 6 times this year. He just loves ducking. Like it's like his favorite. It's his favorite move. His go-to is just if all else fails, duck. And I mean, what was that? The game in Europe. Remember that against Ottawa? He ducked under the puck in overtime to lose a game too. Like it's wild that's happened multiple times this year. But
he's a goalie who makes saves off of flailing. And coming into the game, like if you had told me, I don't want to bash him. I don't want to bash him because he's got a league average save percentage.
We won,
right? And that's exactly it. Well, and if you compare save percentages right now, in the last 6 games, where Reimer has 4 wins, his save percentage is .906. In the last 6 games, where Lyon has 2 wins, he has a .915 save percentage. Like Lyon, by the numbers, has been the better goaltender in the last 6 games each goalie has played.
Feels like when Lyon's in net, we don't know how to score, and when Reimer's in net, take the over.
But Reimer has twice as many wins as Lyon, despite having 10 points worse save percentage. I don't understand. But like
he's a big over goalie. Big over guy.
He's just so unorthodox in the way he makes his saves, and he makes the initial save, but because he's so unorthodox about it, it puts him in a bad position to control a rebound, and then he'll let low danger shots in. But we get the wins. So, like, with that being said, with the performance that Lyon had which was poor against Pittsburgh, but then the poor performance you got out of Reimer, but a win, like, you go back to Reimer for Montreal, right? Like, what works, I suppose.
Well,
and I do want to say congratulations to James Reimer. It kind of comes hollow after we just talked about how unorthodox he is and how he didn't really have a good game, but he did get a win in his 500th NHL game, which is of note. So congratulations on that.
Cool.
But
I mean, But I mean, it's a back-to-back. Like, you're probably going to see both. I guess that's a conversation we're going to have tomorrow. But like,
well, the game's tomorrow.
Yeah. I just meant like, oh, are we going to see whoever we saw today tomorrow, kind of thing. Like, I would imagine that you're going to get heavily consideration for both, unless you just go, you know what, these are the last 2 games of the season. Forget it. We're putting the same person out there for both, and if that, then I guess there's a conversation of who to put out there. But I think it would be Lyon.
Watching him play, I'm just baffled. W. That's all that matters, right? That's all that matters.
Just win. We've been saying it for a while, and they finally did it.
They finally did it. I mean, we'll have a conversation in the offseason about the fact that we talked about it a little bit last week, but goaltending situation is going to be interesting, especially with the fact that Husso didn't make either of his starts in Grand Rapids. Correct. Because he got hurt during warmups, he felt uncomfortable during warmups of the first game. So Kosa ended up making the start. So I'm going on a record and saying that Husso's probably getting shut down here.
Yeah, I would imagine. I would be stunned if we saw him at any point, even if the Wings like made the cup. Like, there's no way we're seeing him the rest of the year.
I feel so bad for Husso. And let's be honest, Husso would go a long way of making this tandem better. And that's not a high bar. I understand that. But I have more confidence in a Lyon and Husso tandem than a Reimer and Lyon tandem. I feel bad. Like, I feel like I'm bashing James Reimer a lot, which I guess could be technically true. And I don't mean ill towards the guy. It's just I'm watching him play. I'm nervous every single game. So
yeah.
All right, we'll go to segment 3, and I think as far as notable performers go, I got one more, and then we can just talk about the situation as it stands.
Yes, sir.
The final 2 games of the season. So stay tuned for that in segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. It's well past the halfway point of the NHL season. In fact, we're just 2 games away from the finale, and the Red Wings, they might make it, they might not. Just win, baby. And regardless of where the Red Wings are at in the standings, I want to remind you that you could win big playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is the #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and it's especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Alex DeBrincat, Lucas Raymond, Dylan Larkin, or hell, James Reimer, with 4 wins in his last 6 starts, will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. You heard me, Red Wings fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. The last notable performers I have for you, Scotty, and you're going to be shocked to hear this. Mo Seider and Ben Sherratt, again, asked to take a lot of minutes. Seider played 24 in this, which he's, again, another game where you give him first pair minutes and you win. Again, correlation, causation, all that argument. Like, I'm not saying that is the reason why they're winning their games.
And you score a lot.
But I am saying that it does help. I'm not saying it's the reason they won, but I'm saying it does help. I mean, they were asked to do a lot in this hockey game, and they came away. Ben Sherratt was a +2. Seider was +1. Plus minus doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot in the end of the day. But I mean, this is a defensive pairing that you didn't think you had a lot of faith in when Wollman got hurt. But I'm going to go out and say I think that Sherratt and Seider have been a better pairing than Wollman and Seider were when Wollman was healthy. And in fact, that's the reason why Wollman hasn't found his way back in the lineup. Plus, I'm sure he's not 100% healthy, but he's healthy enough to play. But I mean, looking at the pairings, there's not really a spot for Wollman right now because you don't want him with Gostisbehere. You don't want him to take Edvinsson's spot. And Sherratt and Seider are playing so well, like you don't replace that. So keep at it. I mean, 24 minutes for Mo Seider, just shy of 24 minutes for Mo Seider. And another game where he looked really good.
Yeah, he was phenomenal, man. And again, no surprise in the first period, especially. I thought him and Sherratt looked really solid. And then the third was kind of a period of runs. Like there was, the Wings applied a lot of pressure for a while, and then the Leafs applied a lot of pressure for a while, and then it was kind of back and forth. Kind of I think you called it a grab bag earlier, which I think is accurate. But yeah, I think Seider and Sherratt. I mean, it's again, I've mentioned it a lot, and I don't mean to be a broken record, but it's just so wild to me how when we first got Sherrod, we tried that. We were like, this is awful, please stop. And now it's like, oh no, this is good. Like this is probably what you should run with the last 2 games of the season here.
Yeah, I mean, and give credit where credit's due for Sherrod too. Like obviously I'm always going to talk about Sider because that's the boy, but Sherrod was really good in this hockey game. He was a 6% relative shot attempt share. Like that's when he was on the ice, relatively, they were a better hockey team because of him, which is he giveth. He's been giveth a lot lately.
He's been giveth.
Except for that one time he didn't clear the puck in the corner a few games back. But outside of that, he's been giveth. Okay. Scotty, in terms of the playoff picture right now, I kind of broke it down for you guys already. Flyers won, Wings won, Washington won. So each team grabs 2 points. We're all tied for the last wild card. Washington has it on the tiebreaker. Pittsburgh lost, so they're 1 point back now of all 3 teams. Washington and Philadelphia end their season against each other on Tuesday. So for the Red Wings to stay alive, because that's guaranteed 2 points for one of those 2 teams, for the Red Wings to stay alive and make the playoffs, they would need a wild outcome from those 2 teams and at least 3 points. But the simplest path is win out. Win the back-to-back against Montreal, which is a beatable team. Granted, a Montreal team that's been playing good hockey lately and beating caliber teams.
They have good young players, man. Like that, we talked about it in the summer when we did our season preview, right? We talked about it last summer. It's like this is a team that is going to be at the bottom of the division this year, but this is a team that's on its way and coming, and it's going to be a team that's right in the mix of everybody else that's trying to jockey for position in this division long term. They got some really good young talent on that team.
The simplest path to the playoffs at this point: beat Montreal twice, don't take them lightly, and hope that Washington loses either to Boston or Philly in any fashion. You just need them to lose once in any fashion, and for you to win both your games, and you're in. Yep. Now, that's why those losses, the OT loss to Washington, the regulation loss to Washington, and the OT loss to Pittsburgh were so crucial because you don't control your own destiny. And I don't like this, but if Boston can take care of business, and remember, they're still, I think they're still in the President's Trophy race. I'd have to double check. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's very possible, man. They're still alive. Now you lose one game and you're done. Like they hold the tiebreakers over you. So if you lose one of these games in regulation, it's over. But at the same time, I don't want to sound like Derek Lalonde because I didn't like it when he said this in the midst of the losing streak. But I mean, if you had told me at the start of the season, this is where it'd be, I'd be pumped. But again, I also understand that and I am upset about the collapse they had. And I understand that expectations change when you have as good of 2 months as they did, but it makes me really excited for the future that this is where they're at.
Keep that energy tomorrow.
We'll see. You have anything to add? Sorry, I kind of rambled there for a couple minutes.
No, you covered it all, man. We will.
All right. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, recapping the game against the Montreal Canadiens, and then previewing the game against the Montreal Canadiens. So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.